Blackmere belongs to my brother now. You will surrender its ledgers and leave before sunset."
Adrian Vale, Duke of Wexford, announced, signing away the estate his wife had rescued from ruin. Evelyn did not plead. She stood at the end of the long oak table, while the scratch of Adrian's pen faded into a silence so complete that she could hear the fire settling behind the iron grate. Around them, 12 tenants, 2 estate stewards, and several members of the Vale family watched as though they had been summoned to witness an execution. Perhaps they had. Evelyn removed the iron ring of granary keys from her waist. For 7 years, their weight had followed her through failed harvests, flooded fields, and winters when Blackmere's tenants had survived only because she had calculated precisely how much grain could be released without emptying the reserves. She placed the keys beside the deed. Adrian's younger brother, Lord Sebastian Vale, reached for them at once. "You might at least thank her," said Mr. Amos Bell, the oldest tenant present. Sebastian's fingers stopped. Adrian turned toward the farmer. "You were invited as a witness, Bell, not as my advisor." The old man lowered his head, but Evelyn saw the anger in the tightening of his jaw. Blackmere had formed part of her marriage settlement. Her late father had purchased its neglected acres so his only daughter would always possess an independent income. But the contract placed legal management in her husband's hands during the marriage. Adrian had once promised that such authority would remain a formality. That had been before Blackmere became profitable, before newspapers praised Evelyn's agricultural reforms, before Adrian's mother began whispering that the Duchess of Wexford had made her husband look weak. "This transfer cannot erase my settlement," Evelyn said. "It does not," Adrian replied. His expression remained composed, almost bored. "Sebastian will manage the estate. The income will still be recorded as yours after necessary expenses." Evelyn glanced at his brother. Sebastian's debts were discussed in every gambling room from London to Bath. Under his management, necessary expenses could consume Blackmere within a season. "You know what he owes." Sebastian smiled. "Careful, sister. Bitterness does not become you, and theft does not become a gentleman. Yet society has been remarkably forgiving toward you." A few tenants failed to conceal their reactions. Adrian's face hardened. There it was, the pride that had brought them to this room. 3 evenings earlier, Lady Wexford had accused him of allowing his wife to rule his estates. Sebastian had laughed. Their uncle had suggested that Evelyn's success made Adrian appear dependent upon a woman whose family had earned its fortune through trade. Adrian could have ended the conversation with a sentence. Instead, he had decided to prove them wrong with her inheritance. "You have confused responsibility with ownership," he said. "Blackmere is attached to the dukedom now. I will determine who governs it." "No," Evelyn answered quietly. "You have confused a husband's legal power with moral entitlement." His eyes flickered. Once she had known every shade of emotion in them. She remembered the young marquis who had ridden beside her across Blackmere's barren fields and listened as she described drainage channels, seed varieties, and fairer leases. She remembered how he had taken her ink-stained hand and said he wanted a marriage in which neither of them needed to become smaller. That man had not disappeared in a single day. He had abandoned her choice by choice. Adrian pushed the signed deed toward Sebastian. "The matter is settled." Sebastian lifted the granary keys. "My first decision will be to collect the winter rents early. Blackmere requires improvements suitable for a ducal property." A murmur spread among the tenants. Evelyn looked directly at Adrian. The northern farms lost nearly half their barley to blight. Early collection will force families to sell their livestock. They have enjoyed your indulgence long enough, Sebastian said. Those reduced rents financed new drainage. The yield increased by 30% in 3 years. I do not require a lecture from a farmer's daughter. Evelyn's father had been the son of a country solicitor, not a farmer. Sebastian knew it. The insult was intended only to remind the room that the Vales considered her blood inferior to theirs. Adrian said nothing. That silence hurt more than Sebastian's contempt. Mr. Bell stepped forward. Your Grace, if Her Grace leaves, who will authorize the grain allotments? Sebastian will. And if we do not accept him? Adrian's gaze sharpened. Then you will answer to the lawful authority of this estate. Evelyn saw something pass between the tenants, not fear, but decision. Sebastian saw it too. Any man who refuses payment will receive an eviction notice. You would empty Blackmere to prove you own it, Evelyn asked. I would remove disobedience before it spreads. Before she could respond, Adrian's secretary entered, carrying a sealed letter. He whispered something into the Duke's ear, and for the first time that afternoon, Adrian's composure slipped. Evelyn noticed the red ribbon tied around the document. A surveyor's ribbon. Adrian folded the letter without showing it to anyone. What is it? She asked. Nothing concerning you. The answer came too quickly. Sebastian slipped the keys into his coat. Your carriage will be prepared for 5, Evelyn. I believe your aunt has a house in Bath. My name remains on Blackmere's settlement. Your name may remain wherever you please, Sebastian said. Your presence will not. Evelyn looked at Adrian one final time, waiting for some trace of the man who had once promised never to use the law as a weapon against her. He avoided her eyes, so she gathered the ledgers that belonged personally to her, took her cloak, and walked out of the house without allowing anyone to see her break. By nightfall, Evelyn had lost her home, her income, and the authority that protected 300 tenant families. Yet, as Sebastian raised a toast in Blackmere Hall, every family on the estate extinguished the lantern outside their cottage. The following morning, the rent bell rang across the valley. Not one tenant came. Evelyn watched from her aunt's empty dower house on the eastern boundary as Sebastian's collectors rode from farm to farm and returned with untouched ledgers. Then Mr. Bell appeared at her door, mud covering his boots. Your Grace, he said, you must see what we found. He led her to the oldest boundary stone in Blackmere Wood. A fresh strip of red ribbon had been tied around it, the same shade as the ribbon on Adrian's secret letter. Evelyn knelt and brushed away the leaves. The earth beside the stone had recently been disturbed. Beneath it lay a folded parliamentary notice, sealed against the damp with waxed cloth. She opened it and felt the blood drain from her face. A compulsory land acquisition hearing had been scheduled for 14 days later. If approved, a private canal company could seize Blackmere's northern farms and demolish 37 tenant homes. The survey had begun 6 weeks ago. 3 weeks before Adrian claimed he had first considered giving Blackmere to his brother, and at the bottom of the notice, beneath the company director's signature, appeared the name of the nobleman who had secretly authorized entry onto her land, Adrian Vale, Duke of Wexford. Dr. Harrow was breathing, but blood darkened the hair above his left temple. Nora had found him lying beside the evidence table shortly after the constable stepped outside to question a tenant. The rear window stood open, its latch broken from within. The thief knew exactly when the room would be empty, Evelyn said. The senior constable looked ashamed. "We were called to the stable. Someone claimed the dead man's body had been moved. A distraction," Adrian said. He had arrived from Blackmere Hall moments before Evelyn. Ash stained his coat, and his left hand was wrapped where the barn fire had burned it. The constable examined the empty evidence box. Only the ledger was taken. The forged letter remains. Because the ledger contained a mistake its creator could not risk having examined, Evelyn replied. She knelt beside Dr. Harrow. A faint gray powder marked the physician's sleeve and the floor beneath the window. Adrian noticed it too. Coal dust? No, crushed slate. The canal company's depot stood beside an old slate yard 2 miles south of Blackmere. Whoever entered through the window had likely come from there. Dr. Harrow stirred. His eyes opened, unfocused. "Do not move," Evelyn said. "Did you see who attacked you?" A man covered his face. The physician winced. He searched the ledger before taking it. Which page? The inside cover. He cut away the lining. The thief had not merely wanted to destroy the forged accounts. Something had been hidden inside the book. Evelyn remembered its unusual weight and the stiffness of the front cover. Sir Malcolm had displayed it too quickly for her to inspect the binding. Dr. Harrow gripped her wrist. He dropped something. Nora searched beneath the cabinet and found a narrow strip of paper. Only 3 handwritten words remained. Harcourt Settlement, Original Deed. Harcourt was Evelyn's maiden name. Adrian read the fragment over her shoulder. "Why would your settlement be mentioned in a false ledger?" "Because Blackmere cannot be seized for the canal if my father's original restrictions still apply." Evelyn's father had insisted that no permanent sale, mortgage, or compulsory transfer could occur without written notice to 3 named trustees. 2 were dead, but the third, retired Judge Sir Edmund Cross, still lived in London. The copy kept at Wexford House contained no such restriction. Evelyn had always assumed her father removed it during final negotiations. Now she wondered whether someone had substituted a different copy after his death. Adrian looked toward the broken window. Sir Malcolm needs the original destroyed before the parliamentary hearing. And the forged ledger gave him a reason to search my office. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Every piece of the scheme led back to powers he had granted. The survey authorization, Sebastian's control of Blackmere, and Sir Malcolm's access to family documents. "You knew Vane wanted the northern land," Evelyn said. "What did he promise you?" Adrian remained silent. She stepped closer. "The tenants nearly lost their winter grain. A man is dead. Dr. Harrow was attacked. You no longer have the right to protect your pride." His gaze met hers. "A seat in the cabinet," he admitted. "Vane said the canal company had support from several ministers. If I helped secure the route, they would support my appointment." Evelyn felt something inside her become still. Adrian had not signed from ignorance alone. He had risked her land for political power. "And when I opposed the canal, he warned me that your influence over Blackmere would make investors withdraw, so you transferred it to Sebastian. I believed he could persuade the tenants. You believed he would frighten them into obedience." Adrian did not deny it. The honesty came too late to be comforting, but it was the first time he had named his choice without hiding behind family duty. Nora entered, carrying a message delivered by a stable boy. A warrant had been issued for Evelyn's arrest on charges of fraud, inciting unlawful resistance, and interfering with a parliamentary survey. It bore the signature of Magistrate Pemberton, Sir Malcolm's cousin. "The hearing is tomorrow morning," Nora said. "If Her Grace does not appear, officers may enter the Dower House." Adrian took the warrant. "I will have it suspended." "By whom?" Evelyn asked. "Your political friends?" His expression tightened. She turned to the constable. "I will appear voluntarily, but first I need a sworn statement from Dr. Harrow and an inventory of everything taken." "You cannot attend that hearing without counsel," Adrian said. "I will send for Sir Edmund Cross. London is 2 days away. Then we must find the original settlement before the magistrate confines me." Evelyn went to her desk and spread out a map of Blackmere. Her father had distrusted banks and solicitors equally. If he retained the original deed, he would have hidden it somewhere on the estate. Her eyes moved across the map toward the abandoned chapel where the Harcourt family records had once been stored. A small cross marked its burial vault. Before she could speak, Thomas burst through the door. "Your Grace, riders are heading to the old chapel." "How many?" "4. Lord Sebastian is with them." Evelyn seized her cloak. Adrian blocked the doorway. "You are exhausted and injured, and your brother is about to destroy the only document that can save Blackmere. I will go. You surrendered my estate to him. I will not surrender the proof as well." They rode together through the darkness. When the ruined chapel appeared between the trees, its doors were already open. Lamplight flickered inside. Evelyn dismounted and ran toward the burial vault. A violent crash sounded below, followed by Sebastian's voice. "Burn everything with the Harcourt seal." Then smoke began pouring up the stone steps. Evelyn closed the forged ledger. "If I had stolen £4,000, she said, "why would I hide the evidence in an office from which I was expelled only yesterday?" Sebastian folded his arms. "Because you never expected me to find it. I designed that office. I know every floorboard in it, and none are loose." One constable shifted uncomfortably. The other continued watching Adrian, clearly reluctant to arrest a duchess without his command. Sir Malcolm tapped his falcon-headed cane against the floor. "The accounts appear convincing enough to justify an inquiry." "Then let us begin with the ink," Evelyn said. She carried the ledger toward the window. The entries supposedly covered 3 years, yet every page held the same dark blue tone. Iron gall ink should have browned gradually with age, especially in Blackmere's damp counting house. These records were written recently. "That is your opinion," Sebastian replied. "It is observable fact. Ask any stationer." Evelyn turned several pages and found a second defect. Her imitator had carefully copied the graceful hand she used in correspondence, but her estate accounts were written in compact block letters, so laborers with limited reading skills could understand them. Adrian knew that. For years, he had watched her work across from him in the library. He had once teased her for possessing 2 distinct hands, one suited to a duchess and another to a military quartermaster. She held the ledger out to him. "Look at it." He did not take it. "Adrian, you have seen my accounts," Sir Malcolm intervened. "A practiced deceiver often varies her writing. You seem remarkably knowledgeable about practiced deceivers." Sebastian moved toward her, but Adrian raised one hand. "Enough." The words silenced the room. Adrian finally accepted the ledger. His eyes moved across the entries, and Evelyn saw uncertainty gather behind his anger. Then Sir Malcolm drew a folded paper from his coat. "There is additional evidence." He placed the letter beside the ledger. It was addressed to Mr. Bell and instructed the tenants to withhold rent until Adrian restored Evelyn's authority. Her signature appeared beneath the final sentence. Adrian read it aloud. "In return for your loyalty, every participating household will receive compensation from funds held privately in my name." His voice sounded colder with each word. Evelyn inspected the letter. The signature was skillful, but the paper carried the watermark of Halford and Sons, a London stationer she had not used since her marriage. The paper is wrong. Sebastian laughed. Will the ink be wrong next? The ink is already wrong. Sir Malcolm's eyes narrowed. Adrian handed the letter to the senior constable. How do you usually proceed? Given Her Grace's rank, I would recommend securing the documents and arranging an examination before a magistrate. Sebastian stared at his brother. You cannot allow her to remain here, encouraging rebellion. The dower house is protected by her settlement, Adrian said. So was Blackmere, apparently, yet you found a way around that. A pulse moved in Adrian's jaw. Evelyn understood then that Sebastian did not possess complete control over him. He was applying pressure, testing how much humiliation Adrian would accept to avoid appearing weak. It was the same weapon the Vale family had used against him since childhood. But Evelyn would no longer shield him from the consequences of yielding to it. You may take the ledger and letter, she told the constables. After Nora records every page and both of you sign a receipt describing their condition. Sir Malcolm's expression sharpened. That will take hours. Then you should not have brought so much evidence. Nora fetched paper and began copying. The constables remained, obliged to preserve the chain of custody. Sebastian paced near the fireplace, while Sir Malcolm spoke privately with Adrian. Evelyn pretended to examine the forged letter, but she watched their reflections in the dark window. Sir Malcolm passed Adrian a small note. Adrian read it, crushed it in his fist, and moved toward the door. Where are you going? Evelyn asked. To Blackmere Hall. Has something happened? It does not concern you. He had given her the same answer when the survey letter arrived. This time, she refused to accept it. When your secrets threaten my tenants, they concern me. Adrian looked toward the constables, unwilling to reveal the matter before them. Remain here until the inquiry. That was not a request I agreed to obey. She followed him outside. His horse stood beside Sir Malcolm's carriage. Beyond the orchard wall, a column of dark smoke was rising above Blackmere's northern fields. Evelyn's breath caught. The grain barn, she said. Adrian seized the reins. Sebastian's collectors attempted to open it. The tenants surrounded them. The barn contains enough grain to feed the village through winter. Then pray your supporters have not set it alight. Evelyn climbed into the saddle of Mr. Bell's waiting mare before Adrian could stop her. They rode hard across the eastern fields. When they reached the barn, flames had already consumed one side of the roof. Dozens of tenants formed a line from the well, passing buckets toward the blaze, while Sebastian's collectors stood at a distance. A woman screamed that her son was inside. Evelyn saw Adrian dismount, but she was already running. Smoke rolled through the doorway. She wrapped her shawl across her mouth and entered low, following the sound of coughing between the grain bins. She found 8-year-old Samuel Bell pinned beneath a fallen beam. Do not move, she told him. The beam was too heavy to lift. Fire crawled along the rafters overhead, dropping sparks into her hair. Evelyn used a broken shovel handle as a lever and forced the timber upward just enough for Samuel to pull free. A section of roof collapsed behind them. Adrian appeared through the smoke, lifted the boy into his arms, and dragged them both outside, seconds before flames swallowed the doorway. Samuel's mother seized her son. Evelyn bent over, coughing violently. Then Mr. Bell shouted from the rear of the barn. 2 tenants emerged, carrying a man whose coat was badly burned. It was one of Sebastian's collectors. Clutched in his blistered hand was a shattered oil bottle. He started it, a tenant said. We saw him pour oil beside the door. The injured collector opened his eyes and stared past Evelyn at Sir Malcolm, who had just arrived in his carriage. "Wasn't meant to burn so fast," the man rasped. "Sir Malcolm said we only had to frighten them." Everyone turned toward the silver falcon cane. Sir Malcolm's face remained calm, but before the constable could question him, the wounded man convulsed and went completely still. Evelyn pulled her shawl over her mouth and descended into the smoke. Adrian caught her arm. "Stay behind me. This is my family vault, and your lungs have already endured one fire today." Before she could object, he moved down the narrow stairs. Evelyn followed close behind, carrying a lantern while smoke curled along the stone ceiling. At the bottom, 2 men were feeding bundles of paper into a brazier. A third forced open a wooden chest marked with the Harcourt seal. Sebastian stood over them. "Step away from the chest," Adrian ordered. Sebastian spun around. "You should not be here. You are burning my wife's records. I am destroying fraudulent documents before she uses them against us." "Against whom?" Evelyn asked. "The canal company or Sir Malcolm?" The 2 hired men fled through a side passage. Adrian moved to pursue them, but Sebastian drew a pistol. "Let them go." Adrian stared at the weapon. "Would you shoot your own brother?" "I would prevent you from ruining us both." Evelyn looked at the burning records. Years of leases, correspondence, and family history were already turning to ash. Beside the brazier lay a small iron box that had not yet been opened. She took 1 step toward it. Sebastian aimed the pistol at her. "Do not." Adrian placed himself between them. For the first time, Sebastian's confidence faltered. "You gave me Blackmere," he said. "Do not pretend innocence now. I gave you management, not permission to destroy evidence. You gave it to me because Vane promised to erase my debts if the canal passed. Your cabinet seat was only the decoration." Adrian's face changed. "What debts?" Sebastian laughed bitterly. "Did you truly believe £4,000 would satisfy my creditors? Vane bought every note against me. He owns my future. So you forged Evelyn's accounts. He provided the book. I merely placed it." Adrian lunged. The pistol fired. The shot struck the stone wall, showering them with fragments. Adrian drove Sebastian backward, and the weapon slid across the floor. Evelyn reached the iron box while the brothers struggled. Its lock had already been damaged. She used a fallen crowbar to break it open. Inside lay sealed legal papers, several letters from her father, and the original Blackmere settlement. She recognized his signature immediately. A red ribbon bound the deed, and beneath it rested a survey map drawn 20 years earlier. Her father had marked an underground spring running directly below the proposed canal route. If heavy excavation disturbed it, the water could flood the northern valley. Sir Malcolm was not merely attempting to seize the farms. He was hiding a danger that could destroy them. A burning beam fell across the stairway. Flames raced along the old wooden shelves, cutting off the main exit. "The side passage!" Evelyn shouted. Sebastian broke free from Adrian and disappeared into the tunnel used by the hired men. Evelyn gathered the settlement and map into the iron box. Adrian seized one handle while she took the other. Together, they entered the passage as fire consumed the vault behind them. The tunnel ended at a rusted gate beneath the chapel cemetery. Sebastian's men had left it open, but loose earth began falling from the roof. They emerged moments before part of the tunnel collapsed. Sebastian was gone. Adrian bent over, coughing. Blood ran from a cut along his cheek. Evelyn held the iron box against her chest. He admitted planting the ledger, but only we heard him. And the original settlement proves motive. Adrian looked toward the chapel, where flames now broke through the roof. "I gave him the authority to enter every building on Blackmere," he said. I made this possible. Yes. He seemed to expect comfort. Evelyn offered none. Hoofbeats sounded beyond the cemetery wall. At first, she thought Sebastian had returned with more men. Instead, Magistrate Pemberton arrived with 6 armed officers. He unfolded Evelyn's arrest warrant. Evelyn Vale, Duchess of Wexford, you are charged with fraud, conspiracy, and the destruction of evidence. She did not start this fire, Adrian said. Pemberton glanced at the iron box in her hands. Then why is she carrying stolen records? They belong to her family. That will be decided in court. 2 officers moved toward Evelyn. Adrian stepped between them, but she touched his arm. Let them take me. Pemberton serves vain. Then tomorrow's hearing is where their scheme must be exposed. She handed the box to Nora, who had just arrived with Mr. Bell. Guard this with your life. But before Nora could leave, one officer seized the box and placed it in Pemberton's carriage. The magistrate smiled. The court will keep your evidence safe, Your Grace. As Evelyn was escorted away, she saw Sebastian standing among the distant trees. He was watching the carriage that carried the only deed capable of saving Blackmere. Then he raised a lantern, signaling someone farther down the road. Evelyn read Adrian's signature twice. The first time, she searched for evidence of forgery. The second, she searched for some explanation that would make it less deliberate. There was none. The slant of the capital A, the sharp break in the V, even the faint smear left where Adrian habitually rested his hand before the ink dried. She had seen them on hundreds of household orders and private letters. Her husband had authorized strangers to survey Blackmere 6 weeks ago, yet he had transferred the estate to Sebastian only yesterday, pretending it was an impulsive response to family criticism. Who else has seen this? Evelyn asked. Only me and Thomas Reed, Mr. Bell replied. The boy discovered the ribbon while gathering fallen branches. Bring him to the dower house, quietly. Mr. Bell glanced toward the trees. Will you challenge the Duke? Not until I know what he believes he signed. You think he was deceived? Evelyn folded the notice along its original creases. I think Adrian often reads only the page placed before him, but he still chooses whose hand he trusts. That distinction mattered. She would not excuse him merely because another person might have profited from his pride. They returned to the dower house through the eastern orchard. The building had not been occupied since Adrian's aunt died 12 years earlier. Dust covered the furniture. Rain had stained 2 ceilings, and only 3 rooms could be warmed without smoke filling the chimneys. It was not a duchess's residence, but it stood on a narrow strip of land retained separately under Evelyn's marriage settlement. Sebastian could not legally remove her from it without a court order. Her maid, Nora Finch, met them at the kitchen door. 2 collectors came asking whether Mr. Bell had visited, Nora whispered. I told them I had seen no one but mice. Did they believe you? No, but the mice appeared offended. Despite everything, Evelyn almost smiled. Thomas Reed arrived before noon. The thin 14-year-old clutched his cap while mud dried on his trousers. He explained that he had seen 2 surveyors beside the boundary stone 3 mornings earlier. A third man remained mounted on a gray horse. Did you recognize him? Evelyn asked. Thomas shook his head. His collar covered most of his face, but he had a silver-topped cane carved like a bird. What sort of bird? A falcon, perhaps. Mr. Bell frowned. Lord Sebastian carries a cane with a lion's head. Evelyn knew only one frequent visitor to Blackmere who carried a silver falcon, Sir Malcolm Vane, Adrian's political advisor. It was Sir Malcolm who had urged Adrian to strengthen his influence in Parliament. Sir Malcolm who had introduced him to the directors of several navigation companies. and Sir Malcolm, who had spent the previous month persuading him that Evelyn's lenient leases were obstructing progress. "What happened after they left?" she asked. "I dug where they'd been standing," Thomas said. "That's when I found the notice." A horse approached outside. Nora moved toward the window. "It is His Grace." Adrian entered without waiting to be invited. His dark riding coat was damp, and the absence of a servant suggested he did not wish his visit observed. His gaze moved from Thomas to Mr. Bell, and finally to the parliamentary notice in Evelyn's hand. "You removed an official document from Blackmere property." "I found a document concealed on land belonging to my settlement." "Give it to me." Evelyn placed it on the table, but kept one hand over Adrian's signature. "Why did you authorize this survey?" His jaw tightened. "It concerns a proposed canal linking the Eastern River to the coal road through 37 homes. The final route has not been selected. The hearing is in 13 days. Adrian looked at Thomas. "Leave us." The boy hesitated until Evelyn nodded. Mr. Bell followed him outside, but Nora remained near the kitchen door. "You transferred Blackmere because of the canal," Evelyn said once they were gone. "I transferred it because Sebastian requested an opportunity to prove himself. Yesterday, you said it was because I had exceeded my place. Both can be true, and neither explains why you hid this." Adrian crossed to the window. In the orchard beyond him, the trees Evelyn had saved from disease were beginning to lose their leaves. "The company will pay generously for the land," he said. "The proceeds will fund improvements across the Wexford estates. Blackmere is already profitable because you refuse to spend on anything beyond drainage ditches and tenants' roofs. Those are the reasons it is profitable." He turned sharply. "You speak as though every decision I make must satisfy you. No. I speak as though people should not lose their homes so your advisor's friends can build a canal." At the mention of Sir Malcolm, Adrian's expression changed, only slightly, but Evelyn saw it. Vane has nothing to do with the route. He was seen at the boundary stone. By whom? Evelyn did not answer. Protecting Thomas was more important than winning the argument. Adrian stepped closer. "You are encouraging the tenants to withhold rent. They made that choice before speaking to me. They would not dare without believing you would protect them. Perhaps they remember who protected them the last time your family's decisions threatened their survival." The words struck him. For an instant, anger gave way to something closer to shame. Then the front door opened violently. Sebastian strode inside, accompanied by 2 constables and Sir Malcolm Vane. The silver falcon on Sir Malcolm's cane gleamed beneath his gloved hand. Sebastian threw a small leather account book onto the table. "We found this hidden beneath a loose floorboard in Evelyn's former office," he announced. "It records rent payments that never entered Blackmere's official accounts." Evelyn opened the book. Every page appeared to be written in her hand. The entries showed that she had stolen more than £4,000 from the estate over 3 years. Adrian stared at the figures, his face draining of color. Evelyn turned to the final page and saw something even more dangerous than the forged accounts. Beside her imitated signature was a written promise to pay Blackmere's tenants for refusing Sebastian's authority. Sir Malcolm smiled faintly. "My apologies, Your Grace," he said to Adrian. "It seems your wife's rebellion began long before yesterday." Evelyn rode toward the depot with Adrian and the constables behind her. The wagon carrying the gunpowder had already crossed the bridge. Sir Malcolm stood beside the storehouse, ordering workers to remain in their lodging house under the pretense that armed tenants were approaching. "He is trapping them inside," Adrian said. Evelyn examined the survey map while they rode. The weakened spring ran beneath the depot's eastern wall. If the powder exploded there, the ground would collapse before anyone could escape. They had to stop the fuse without frightening Sir Malcolm into lighting it early. "Circle around the northern side," she told Adrian. "Get the workers out through the rear windows. And you, I will give Vane a reason to wait." Evelyn approached the bridge alone, holding the original settlement above her head. Sir Malcolm stepped into view with a pistol in one hand and a burning torch in the other. "You should have remained in custody," he called. "You should have learned to imitate account books properly." His expression tightened. Evelyn moved closer. "Your ledger used the wrong paper, the wrong ink, and the wrong handwriting. Even if you destroy this settlement, the forgery will expose you. The ledger is already traveling to court. Then so is your failure." Behind the lodging house, Adrian began opening the windows. Workers slipped silently into the darkness. Sir Malcolm lowered the torch toward a trail of powder. "Give me the deed." Evelyn held it near the lantern mounted on the bridge. "Take one more step, and I burn it myself." He froze. The deed was useless to him as ash. He needed it intact long enough to replace or alter its conditions. While he hesitated, Evelyn heard the final workers leaving the lodging house. Then Magistrate Pemberton emerged from the storehouse and seized the deed from behind her. Sir Malcolm dropped the torch. Evelyn kicked it aside, but a spark reached the powder trail. Flame raced across the bridge toward the wagon. Adrian vaulted over the railing and cut the harness. The frightened horses dragged the wagon away from the storehouse, but one wheel struck a stone and broke. The burning trail was seconds from reaching the powder. Evelyn saw water rushing through the reopened drainage channel below the bridge. She seized a timber lever and forced it beneath the damaged wheel. "Push!" Adrian and 3 workers joined her. Together they rolled the wagon over the edge. It plunged into the flood channel. The explosion struck underwater. A wall of mud and water rose above the bridge, throwing everyone to the ground. The depot's windows shattered, but the buildings remained standing. Sir Malcolm attempted to flee. Mr. Bell and the canal workers surrounded him before he reached his horse. Pemberton still held the original deed. The constable arrested him and recovered it undamaged. Inside the depot, Evelyn found what Sir Malcolm had intended to destroy: payment ledgers linking him to the canal directors, Pemberton, Sebastian's creditors, and the collector who had burned the grain barn. One entry purchased poison from a London apothecary. By dawn, every surviving document was sealed under independent witness. The public hearing began at 10. The courtroom was crowded with tenants, canal workers, reporters, and members of Parliament. Sir Malcolm, Sebastian, and Pemberton sat under guard. The forged ledger had arrived before them. The prosecutor presented it as proof that Evelyn had stolen estate rents. Then Evelyn called Nora, who produced the copies she had made before the original disappeared. Each page included a small counting mark beside the figures. "My accounts never used such marks," Evelyn said. "But Sir Malcolm's political secretary does." She placed one of his authenticated expense books beside the forgery. The marks were identical. A stationer confirmed the paper had been purchased by Sir Malcolm's office 6 weeks earlier. Dr. Harrow testified that all entries used recently mixed ink. Thomas identified Sir Malcolm's falcon-headed cane, and the physician confirmed that its hidden needle carried the same poison found in the dead collector. Finally, the canal company's ledger revealed the full plan. Sir Malcolm had arranged for Blackmere's tenants to be evicted before the underground danger became public. Sebastian planted the forged accounts in exchange for the cancellation of his gambling debts. Pemberton issued the arrest warrant and intended to approve the land seizure before Evelyn could challenge it. Then Adrian took the witness stand. He faced the crowded courtroom and his wife. I authorized the secret survey, he said. I transferred Blackmere to my brother because I wanted political advancement and because I resented that my wife's competence made my own failures visible. A murmur spread through the gallery. I was warned that the tenants would suffer. I silenced the person who warned me. Every crime committed afterward was made easier by the authority I surrendered to dishonest men. Evelyn did not look away. The parliamentary commissioner examined the original settlement and declared the transfer to Sebastian invalid. Blackmere's control and income were restored to Evelyn pending final judgment. But before the charges were formally dismissed, Sir Malcolm rose abruptly. "There is one fact she has concealed," he shouted. "The original settlement is worthless." The courtroom fell silent. He pointed toward a sealed letter on the judge's table. "Because her father revoked it 3 days before his death." Evelyn spread the survey map across the overturned carriage. Her father's blue markings showed 3 drainage channels leading from the northern hill. 2 had been sealed decades earlier. The 3rd ran beneath the abandoned mill and emptied into the eastern marsh. "If we reopen this channel," she said, pointing to the faded line, "the floodwater may bypass the village." "May?" Adrian asked. "The map is 20 years old. I do not know whether the tunnel has collapsed." Another tremor moved through the ground. They had no better option. Mr. Bell led the tenants toward the village, while Evelyn rode for the mill. Adrian followed with 6 laborers carrying shovels and axes. Behind them, the constables transported Sebastian, Pemberton, and Sir Malcolm under guard. "You cannot leave us beside a flood," Sebastian protested. Evelyn looked back. "Then you should have considered where the water would go before helping them blast the hill." At the village, church bells rang without pause. Families carried children and blankets toward the ridge. Some refused to abandon their animals until Evelyn ordered the stable gates opened and every horse and cow driven uphill. No one questioned her authority. The same tenants Sebastian had threatened now moved according to Evelyn's directions because she had earned their trust over 7 years, not demanded it through a deed. At the mill, water was already bubbling through cracks in the stone floor. Evelyn found the old channel entrance behind a rusted grain wheel. Its iron gate had been sealed with masonry. "Break through here," she ordered. The laborers attacked the wall with hammers. Adrian removed his coat and worked beside them, his injured hand staining its bandage red. A roar sounded beneath their feet. "The spring has broken," Evelyn said. "Faster!" The wall cracked, but only enough for a narrow stream to escape. Debris blocked the tunnel beyond it. Someone would have to enter and clear the obstruction from inside. "I am smaller," Evelyn said. "No." Adrian caught her shoulder. "You have already entered 2 burning buildings, and I know how the channel turns. I know the map. You looked at it for less than 5 minutes. That is 5 minutes more than the men outside have." Before she could stop him, Adrian took a rope and crawled through the broken wall. Evelyn tied the other end around the mill's central pillar. 3 pulls if you need to be brought back. The water rose above his knees, then his waist, before darkness swallowed him. Minutes passed. The rope jerked once, then twice, not 3. Evelyn pressed her ear against the opening. Deep inside the tunnel, metal struck stone. Adrian was still working. A violent surge burst through the gap, knocking 2 laborers down. The rope pulled tight around the pillar. "He has opened something," Mr. Bell shouted. Water exploded from the tunnel, filling the mill floor. Evelyn and the tenants scrambled onto the stone ledge. The rope remained taut. "Pull him out." 6 men dragged together, but the rope would not move. Adrian was caught. Evelyn wrapped the line around her hands and felt a series of weak movements from the other end. 3 pulls. She climbed into the torrent. Mr. Bell tried to stop her, but she ducked beneath the opening and followed the rope through the flooded tunnel. Muddy water pressed against her chest. 20 feet inside, she found Adrian pinned beneath a broken wooden brace. She wedged her shoulder beneath it. "Move your leg." "I cannot." "Then stop arguing and help me lift." Together, they raised the brace just enough for him to pull free. The current carried them toward the mill, where the laborers dragged them through the opening. Outside, a great wave raced along the reopened channel. It passed the first cottages, swept across the empty fields, and poured into the eastern marsh. The village remained standing. Cheers rose from the ridge. Adrian lay beside Evelyn, coughing water. For one brief moment, relief softened his face. Then Thomas came running from the church tower. "The canal men are bringing wagons from the depot," he shouted. "They have more powder." Evelyn forced herself upright. "Where are Sir Malcolm and the prisoners?" The constable's expression changed. He looked toward the tree where they had been secured. The ropes lay cut in the mud. Sir Malcolm had escaped. So had Magistrate Pemberton. Sebastian remained behind, unconscious from a blow to the head. He refused to go with them, one officer said. Pemberton struck him. Sebastian opened his eyes. "They are not coming to blast the hill again," he whispered. Vane kept copies of every illegal payment at the depot. "If the officers search it, the canal directors will hang him. Then he intends to destroy the records," Evelyn said. Sebastian shook his head. "The depot is beside the workers' lodging house. 40 men are sleeping there." Another line from her father's survey map caught Evelyn's eye. The underground spring passed beneath the depot before turning toward Blackmere. The first blasts had weakened the ground. A larger explosion would collapse the entire site. Adrian rose unsteadily. "How long before they reach it?" Evelyn looked toward the moving lanterns on the southern road. "Perhaps 30 minutes." Sebastian grabbed her sleeve. "There is something else." Vane ordered a courier to take the forged accounts to the parliamentary hearing at dawn. "Even if we save the depot, he intends to convict you in public." Evelyn folded the map and faced the road. "Then we will save the men first." "And the hearing?" Adrian asked. Her expression hardened. "Tomorrow, Sir Malcolm will discover that I do not need his ledger to prove who wrote it." In the distance, a wagon loaded with gunpowder crossed the bridge toward the canal depot, and Evelyn saw a familiar silver cane glint beside the driver. The constable knelt beside the collector and pressed 2 fingers to his throat. "He is dead." Sir Malcolm's cane stopped tapping. Adrian turned on him. "Did you order this man to burn the barn?" "Certainly not. The poor fellow was delirious. He named you clearly," Evelyn said. "He was choking on smoke while half his body burned. That is hardly reliable testimony." Sebastian stepped between them. "Whatever happened, the tenants surrounded our collectors. Their rebellion created the danger. They were saving the grain your men tried to destroy," Mr. Bell said. The senior constable ordered everyone away from the body. While the tenants extinguished the remaining flames, his assistant searched the dead man's coat. He found 6 guineas, a tinderbox, and a folded instruction bearing Sebastian's seal. Sebastian snatched it before the constable could read it. Adrian seized his wrist. "Give it back." For a moment, the brothers stared at each other. Then Sebastian released the paper. The order authorized the collectors to enter the granary and remove enough grain to cover unpaid rents. It said nothing about fire, but it proved Sebastian had sent them. "You acted without informing me," Adrian said. "You gave me Blackmere to manage. I did not give you permission to starve its tenants. No, you merely signed the deed and expected me to absorb the blame." The accusation struck close enough to make Adrian silent. Evelyn watched Sir Malcolm edge toward his carriage. "Constable," she called, "search the carriage." Sir Malcolm gave a cold smile. On what authority? Your name was spoken by a dying man, not under oath. Then remain voluntarily until the magistrate decides whether it matters. He turned to Adrian. Your Grace, control your wife. Adrian's expression darkened. You lost the privilege of speaking about her when your name was connected to this fire. It was the first defense he had offered her since transferring Blackmere. Evelyn felt no gratitude. One sentence could not repair weeks of secrecy or the destruction caused by his signatures. Sir Malcolm entered his carriage before the constable could stop him. The driver whipped the horses, forcing several tenants aside. "Go after him," Evelyn cried. But the constables had arrived on foot. By the time Adrian mounted, the carriage had reached the southern road. Evelyn looked down at the dead collector's burned coat. Near the sleeve, a reddish stain darkened the fabric. She touched it carefully and smelled iron, oil, and something bitter. His burns did not kill him, she said. Adrian dismounted. What? He was speaking moments ago. Then he convulsed. The estate physician had been dismissed that morning, so Evelyn sent Thomas to fetch Dr. Harrow from the neighboring village. Until he arrived, she insisted the body remain untouched. The doctor examined the collector in the Dower House stable. An hour later, he found a small puncture behind the man's ear. Something sharp entered here, Dr. Harrow said. The convulsions suggest poison. Nora crossed herself. Evelyn remembered Sir Malcolm leaning over the injured man before the constables reached him. His gloved hand had rested near the collector's head. The silver falcon cane was not merely decorative. Its beak was narrow enough to conceal a needle. Adrian stood motionless beside the stable door. You trusted him with the canal proposal, Evelyn said. I trusted his political judgment. You trusted him enough to survey my land without telling me. I believed the canal would enrich Blackmere. And when I objected, you removed me. Adrian looked toward the burned barn. I did not know he would do this. No. But you knew I would oppose him, so you made certain I could not. He had no answer. At dusk, Adrian returned to Blackmere Hall to secure Sir Malcolm's correspondence. Evelyn went with Mr. Bell to inspect what remained of the grain. Half had survived, but several storage bins had been emptied before the fire began. Sebastian's men could not have moved this much today, Evelyn said. The grain disappeared earlier. She examined the wheel marks behind the barn. Heavy wagons had traveled south during the night, toward the canal company's depot. Then Thomas found a brass button beside the tracks. It bore the crest of Wexford's private household guard. Only Adrian or Sebastian could have ordered those men. A rider approached before Evelyn could speak. It was Nora, pale and breathless. Your Grace, you must return to the Dower House. The constables opened the box containing the forged ledger. What happened? The ledger is gone, Nora swallowed, and Dr. Harrow was found unconscious beside the empty evidence box. The judge opened the sealed letter. It appeared to revoke the restrictions protecting Blackmere and carried the signature of Evelyn's father. Sir Malcolm watched her with renewed confidence. Evelyn requested the document. She examined the wax first. The Harcourt seal was genuine, but the black pigment mixed into it had not been used by her father. It matched the sealing wax on Sir Malcolm's political correspondence. Then she held the page beside the courtroom window. My father's signature is authentic, she said. But it was cut from another document and attached here. A faint rectangular edge surrounded the signature. Nora produced the letters recovered from the chapel vault. One contained the missing lower section, where Evelyn's father had signed an instruction concerning repairs to the dower house. The fibers matched perfectly. The supposed revocation was a construction of two separate pages. Evelyn then called the final witness, Sir Edmund Cross, the surviving trustee, who had arrived from London that morning after receiving her urgent message. My consent was required for any revocation, he testified. I gave none. Mr. Harcourt wrote to me 3 days before his death, insisting that Blackmere must always provide his daughter with independent security. The judge dismissed every charge against Evelyn. The parliamentary commissioner declared the canal seizure unlawful and permanently suspended the project. Blackmere, its income, and full management authority were restored solely to Evelyn under the original settlement. Sir Malcolm was charged with conspiracy, forgery, attempted mass murder, poisoning, and the collector's death. Pemberton was removed from office and charged with corruption and unlawful imprisonment. Sebastian confessed to planting the ledger and burning the chapel records. His cooperation spared him the harshest sentence, but his property was sold to repay Blackmere's losses, and he was forbidden from managing any Vale estate. Then Adrian returned to the witness stand. Before the tenants, reporters, and members of Parliament, he publicly withdrew every accusation against his wife. I betrayed Evelyn for ambition, he said. I surrendered her estate to prove that her competence did not govern me. When she warned me, I chose wounded pride over truth. Sir Malcolm exploited my decision, but he did not make it for me. Adrian renounced the promised cabinet appointment. He transferred additional land and sufficient funds to rebuild the grain barn, restore the damaged farms, and compensate every displaced family. Finally, he signed a legal separation agreement granting Evelyn control of her residence, finances, and public work. Outside the courtroom, he returned the iron ring of granary keys. I will not ask you to forgive me, he said, nor will I ask you to return. Evelyn accepted the keys. That is the first honest gift you have given me in years. Adrian's eyes lowered. Is there any hope for us? There may be a future in which I no longer hate what you did. That is not the same as offering you my life again. He nodded, accepting the boundary without argument. 6 months later, Blackmere's restored barn opened before the first winter frost. Evelyn established an independent agricultural trust, placing tenant representatives on its governing board, so no duke could ever again gamble away their security. At the opening ceremony, 300 families lit lanterns along the road. This time, they did not extinguish them in protest. Evelyn stood beneath their warm light and fastened the iron keys at her waist, not as Adrian Vale's obedient wife, but as the woman Blackmere had always trusted to lead it. The signal was answered by 3 lantern flashes from the bend ahead. Evelyn understood at once. They are going to stop the carriage. Magistrate Pemberton glanced through the window. Sit back. The road ahead is blocked. You appear remarkably eager to invent dangers whenever evidence is placed beyond your control. Adrian rode beside the carriage, but 2 armed officers separated him from the door. Evelyn struck the window with her cuffed hands. Adrian! He turned just as a wagon rolled from the trees and blocked the narrow road. The driver pulled hard on the reins. Before the carriage stopped, masked riders descended from both sides. One fired into the air, while another cut the led horse loose. The officers dismounted to confront them. Evelyn threw herself against Pemberton as he reached beneath his coat. A small pistol fell from his hand. You knew they were coming, she said. He struck her across the face. The carriage door opened, and Sebastian climbed inside. Give me the key to the evidence box, he demanded. Pemberton handed it over without hesitation. There was no longer any doubt that the magistrate was part of the scheme. Sebastian opened the box and seized the original settlement and survey map. Evelyn kicked the pistol beneath the opposite seat before he noticed it. "Once these burn," he said, "Blackmere will belong to the canal company, and your accusations will sound like the desperation of a convicted thief. You confessed in the chapel. To my brother and a wife he has publicly discredited." Gunfire cracked outside. Sebastian jumped down with the documents. Evelyn reached beneath the seat and found the pistol, but Pemberton caught her wrist. They struggled until she drove her elbow into his throat. She escaped the carriage. Adrian was fighting one of the masked riders near the ditch. Evelyn saw Sebastian running toward the trees, the red ribbon of the settlement visible beneath his coat. She raised the pistol. "Stop!" Sebastian turned, confident she would not fire. He was right. Evelyn aimed at the lantern hanging from the saddle of his waiting horse and pulled the trigger. The glass shattered. The frightened animal reared, throwing Sebastian backward into the mud. The documents scattered across the road. Evelyn ran toward them. Sir Malcolm emerged from the trees and reached the survey map first. His silver cane flashed as he swung it toward her. Evelyn stepped aside, caught the shaft with both hands, and twisted. The falcon's head came loose. Inside was a narrow glass vial and a spring-loaded needle stained dark at the tip, the same weapon used to poison the collector. Sir Malcolm struck her shoulder and retrieved the map, but Adrian tackled him before he could escape. Both men fell against the overturned wagon. "Take the settlement," Adrian shouted. Evelyn gathered the deed from the mud. Sebastian lunged for it, but Mr. Bell and a dozen tenants arrived from the northern track, blocking his path. The masked riders fled. The constables restrained Pemberton and Sebastian, while Adrian held Sir Malcolm against the wagon. Evelyn handed the cane to the senior constable. "You will find the same poison in that vial that killed the collector." Sir Malcolm smiled despite the blood on his lip. An accusation from a woman already charged with fraud. "Not merely hers," Adrian said. He released Sir Malcolm only after the constable secured his wrists. "I will testify to everything I authorized. The secret survey, the transfer of Blackmere, and Vane's promise of political advancement." Sir Malcolm's smile vanished. Adrian faced Evelyn. "The hearing tomorrow will be public. I will withdraw my accusation and acknowledge that I gave them access to your land." "You will do more than withdraw it," she said. "You will tell the court why you chose to believe them." Shame crossed his face. "I will." Evelyn looked at the tenants who had risked themselves to protect her. "And Sebastian's transfer must be revoked tonight." Adrian turned to his brother. "It is revoked. You cannot simply take Blackmere back." Sebastian spat. "I gave it to you under delegated management. You have abused that authority." Adrian ordered the constables to take Sebastian and Pemberton to the county jail. Sir Malcolm, however, began laughing. "You still believe tomorrow's hearing matters?" Evelyn gripped the settlement. "It matters because the canal cannot proceed without Blackmere. It already has." Sir Malcolm nodded toward the southern horizon. A deep explosion rolled across the valley. Birds rose from the trees in a black wave. The road trembled beneath Evelyn's boots. Far beyond the fields, orange light burst above the canal depot. "They began blasting tonight," Sir Malcolm said. "By dawn, the underground spring will break through. Your precious northern farms will be underwater before Parliament learns they ever belonged to you." Evelyn opened her father's survey map under the carriage lantern. A line of blue ink showed the underground spring feeding directly into the village well. If the blasting fractured the stone channel, the first flood would not strike the fields. It would strike the sleeping village. "Get everyone to higher ground," Evelyn ordered Mr. Bell. Adrian looked at the map. "How long do we have?" Evelyn measured the distance between the blast site and the oldest drainage channel. "Less than 2 hours." Then a second explosion shook Blackmere. This one came from beneath the northern hill, and somewhere in the darkness, the village church bell began ringing.